Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Jared at 3Cs. I am so excited to bring you this video. This kind of started, a customer wanted a 125 RX, which would be like a motocross 125. Beta doesn't make it. So I needed to steal parts from somewhere, and I'm like, man, how cool would it be to take a 350 RX and turn it into a 350 RC? I am all about building cool stuff like this, so just want to show you the build that we created. It's right here. I have a stock 350 right behind it, so we can kind of compare what we did and why we did it. What's awesome is I posted this bike for sale last night at about 5 o'clock. Got a text from a friend a little after 7 o'clock this morning and says, it's mine, I'm taking it. So it's already sold, but let's jump into what we did. This is what we started with. We had a Beta 350 RX. What's cool with the RX model is it already comes with the race wire harness. It doesn't have the steering lock in the frame. The coolant hose doesn't have the thermostat in it. So a lot of the things that my race woods guys want, you know, no lighting, the taillight's super clean, or no taillight, just a rear fender, just like a motorbike. So perfect package to start with for like a GNCC racer. And so we took that and we just turned it into more of a woods bike. What we did is we went with a 2.6, this is right off a race edition, a 125, so it's a 2.6 gallon clear tank. What's cool about these tanks is you can kind of see that's where our fuel level is. So as you're riding or racing, you can adjust that or know where you're at with fuel. And then we put the 2118 wheel set on here. Of course, there's a few things that we could have done differently. One would be an IMS tank. So if we wanted a 3.5 gallon tank, we could have gone right to an IMS. Of course, tires is always a big topic. People are like, oh, this is the only brand to run, the only tire that I'll race with. That's cool, and you can change the tires. But what I always tell people is if you're breaking a bike in, run the stock tires off of it. Just trash these things, right? So these are the Maxxis. It's a 120 wide. Not a super tall knobby on there, right? So this 350 is probably going to eat right through that. That's okay, because you want to run this bike for a while, break it in, put a tank of fuel through it, check all your nuts and bolts. So tire isn't something that I was worried about, but we did a rear rotor guard. We always like these no matter what kind of off-road racing you're doing. Almost every GNCC is going to have a rock guard of some sort. We put the fast rear brake clevis on here. You can see how that tightens it way up. You have a super tight rear brake feel. The stock one has a ton of free play right here. So I would say like a third of our builds end up with that. We did a Moose full skid plate with a linkage guard in it. I was about to throw just a stock Beta 2-stroke skid plate on it, but I'm like, nope, that's not what I would do on our bikes. So you can see how much thicker it is here, and then it does have the linkage guard down below. We added the adjustable power valve screw, and so this just lets you grab it, right? Normally you'd have to have like a 5 mil hex head, you know, tuck it in your boot, go right around, play with this. I do recommend if you have a Beta, play with that screw. It makes such a difference. We did a video on YouTube. It's probably got like 50,000 views now of us adjusting that. It's pretty cool. This is just a AS3. It's a water pump cover. It's just a billet piece. Looks really good on there. It doesn't actually change the water pump or the volume. That's a different kit from Beta. This is just a really cool cover. I think that looks great on the side of this motor. Goes with the red bling there. I chose to leave the stock foot pegs on here, and honestly, a lot of my racers, if you buy the race editions, they're going back to these stock pegs. Maybe not the case now for the 25 and 26 race edition foot pegs because they did redesign those. But for a long time, everybody really wanted the stock pegs. I think it's a good look. Didn't add any more cost to the build, so we left those on there. Up in the front of the bike, we added the bulletproof rad guards. It seems like everybody likes these. No matter if you tip over on the side or front protection, and it's a really cool blue looking piece on there. Thought that was a great addition to it. We also changed the plastics a little bit. You can see over here the RX comes with a red front fender, and it comes with the older style shrouds, which is totally fine. But whenever we swapped tanks and everything, I was able to keep, the customer wanted the RX graphics for his new build, which was great. And so I put a blue front fender on here. I did some custom 3Cs shrouds. Now these are like off of 2025, so they dish in here, the newer styling. And then I had a custom RC number plate graphic built for the front of it because that bike originally had an RX. So HBD Moto Graphics, emailed them, and look at that. It literally looks professional. Looks like it rolled right off the showroom. So they did a great job of that. Up on the bars, we added the Enduro Engineering. They're not wraparounds. They're just a flag style handguard. It seems like a lot of the fast young kids, like my son and all of his friends, they're going away from wraparounds. They're just sticking with a standard flag style handguard. That's what they're liking these days. And you've got, right here, you've got some grip donuts. Pretty much a must in a 3-hour race. We also added the centerpiece here because if you look at that RX with the smaller gas tank, it does not have that. Kind of finished the look up here. Got the check valve in the fuel vent line. We left the dual ignition map because that's actually been a huge thing. People really enjoy the dual ignition maps. Kill switch, start button, and then these are stock features, right? So not something that we changed. That's what's cool about the RX is it's already come and trimmed down. I did add a nice little, I don't know what you want to call it there, little wrapper to kind of hold those wires exactly where I wanted them. Really excited about that. They come around super clean, tuck in nicely, and run right down the frame here. Swinging the bike around here, you can see the rad guard on this side. We did the Beta slave cylinder guard. We've been selling this for so long, so many years, hundreds and hundreds of these. Been a really good product for us. It lets the mud shed out of here. So if you've got a mud race and it's flinging up through, this still protects this but lets the mud shed out of there. We did a TM Designs upper chain guard here. I just think the red really complemented it because it has the red lower chain block already, but it had the black here. So I just thought, you know, standing back and looking at that just really highlights the swing arm a little bit. We did the Beta air screw adjuster. Now, of course, the fine tune, this is more of your fine tune adjuster. This is your actual air screw down here. But usually when we set up bikes, we set that to exactly where it needs to be, the lower one. And then the upper one, it lets you really fine tune that idle. Once the bike is warmed up and you wrap on the throttle a couple times, if you screw this in or out, you know, even a half a turn, it really adjusts that idle for the day. So depends on where you're riding. You might play with that more than you think. A really big feature that we added was a Boyson rad valve. So if you look in here, it's a completely different look than the V-Force. Now, I'm not here to slam any other company. It's just really cool working with Boyson. If you spend like 5 minutes on the phone with Eric, he does all the R&D stuff right here in America, right in North Carolina. The amount of knowledge that he has on his product and what he does and how they design this to work at the frequency of the piston and the mass RPM, it's incredible with what he knows. And Boyson went a step further. They've designed 2 different valves. They've got one that's called the Sprint, and that gives you more top end power, and that's what we installed here. And there's variations because you can see this plastic spacer that's in here. We went with a smaller one. They make a bigger spacer as well, and that would create more volume, which would give it more torque. So you could run this Sprint one with a bigger spacer and still get more torque. Now, they also make a torque version of this power valve, and I'll put a picture here of both of them on the seat of this thing before I install them. And that one gives the engine a more torquey feel. Now, this thing's already a 350 2-stroke, so we went with the other one, with the speed one, just because we thought I already had torque. Now, this bike already sold, like I said, to my friend Kevin. Known him forever. I'm going to give him both of the Boyson rad valves. He said in South in like 2 weeks. So he can go down there and test them back to back, and I can get some actual real world feedback from him. He's been racing. We actually competed against each other in Open B back in like 2013. So I've known Kevin forever. So I'm really looking forward to his feedback between the 2 different power valves. It's really hard for me in the showroom just to take this brand new bike and go ride it, right? So looking forward to his feedback. You'll notice little things that I do, like I cut the overflow vent tube and it's gonna drip down here near the exhaust so you'll smell it. I just do little stuff like that to race bikes because if this was tucked down on the skid plate, you would never know if the radiator cap was blowing off and it was blowing in down here, you would never know that it's overheating. And this lets it blow on the exhaust and then you'll smell it. And that's just like a race thing, you know, as you become more familiar with your bike, what conditions you're in, when you need to let off, that just gives you like a tall tale sign. This bike also received the fuel petcock off of the RR Race Edition. So you have on, off, and reserve. The normal RX is just off or on, so this gives you that flexibility in the woods. Now, to make this gas tank work, I had to grind the pegs that the pucks sit on. And I'll throw some pictures and maybe like a quick video in here right now. You guys at home with your 350 RXs trying to convert them into woods bikes. This build is almost done. What I really want to talk to you guys about is the gas tanks not fitting all the time. I did a video of an IMS sliding straight on. We might have just gotten lucky with that one. I think there's a little bit of variation in between those tanks. But there is a difference between the RX frame and your standard RR frame, Race Edition frame. Seems like, I'm going to call these the pucks. This is what your gas tank, this just bolts straight on there. This is what your gas tank rides on. And when it slides on in, it locks it into place. They seem to be a lot wider on the RX. And this is threaded in all the way. If you look, it's really hard to tell, but the threads go super deep in there. So we just file them down until we can get the gas tank to fit the way we want it to. So we just continue, and what we're doing is, if you just have the standard RX tank, you're not doing any of this, but this is the bigger race edition tank that we're trying to put on this bike. So I'm just gonna keep filing it down until it fits properly. So that pretty much wraps up this build. I didn't want to do something that was expensive. I wasn't trying to add bling. I think the only blingy thing you could argue that I did was the water pump cover. Everything else was like true race ready stuff. Oh, we also added engine ice because we run that. So I would literally, other than, you know, doing some practice riding, setting your sag, and then maybe changing the rear tire once you got everything settled in, and possibly a chain. That's probably the last thing I would do. Is these are a non-O-ring chain and they seem to stretch pretty quick. Or at least that's what we learned on the 450s. So I would ride it for a couple hours, set the sag, get rid of the tires, and probably change the chain. And then that thing's ready to head to the GNCC. We even had HBD hooked us up with our normal shroud graphics, so thanks to them. Pretty pumped on that. And one more time, we can just kind of look at the stock one over here. Again, nothing wrong with this bike. I just thought, why not build something cool? So you can see the stock louvers that come on here. There's not going to be a skid plate. This is that 5mm hex head instead of the adjuster that we added. This is the stock water pump cover there. Here's the stock brake play. You can see that brake clevis really tightens that up there. Here is no rotor guard with a 19-inch rear wheel. I think that's everything on this side other than the hand guards there in the front. These new stands are amazing. I can swing these bikes around. Here is that stock chain guide in the front. We obviously went with the beta version. It lets the mud shed out of here. Here's that black swing arm guard. Again, that's fine. It just, man, that red really pops. Gives it a good look back here. I think that's pretty much it. It's everything we did in the build. So thanks to Kevin. Excited to get him back on a beta. He bought one for me back in 2013. And I'm excited to get him back. So look forward to some more content. If you guys found this helpful or thought it was cool, please consider subscribing to our channel. I would appreciate it. Enjoy the ride. I'll see you on the trail.